All right, everybody. It's me. It's Eric Eska, and I get a lot of requests for people who are. I know you're like, what is this white thing going on? I'm about to explain what's happening right now. I get a lot of requests for people who want to see exactly how I made the exposure unit. For those of you who don't know, I made a homemade DIY exposure unit for screen printing. And I get all these people who say, well, you should make blueprints, you should explain how you did it so that we can make one too. And honestly, I'm not a carpenter and I don't know much about blueprints and stuff like that. What I know is what I know, and I just kind of built it the way that I saw that it would work and learned as I went. I did build a smaller exposure unit before, so that was very helpful. There are lots of good videos out there showing you what makes a good exposure unit. Search DIY exposure unit. There are videos out there that will teach you. I'm going to draw out as best as I can. You're going to really have to bear with me here. What I used, and for the most part, how I did it. Okay, I don't even remember exactly everything that I did, but this is going to give you a breakdown of what I did and most of the tools and things that I've used. I'm going to go into as much detail as possible, but you really have to bear with me. Try not to get frustrated with how I explain this. Again, I'm not an architect. I'm not a draftsman or whatever you want to call them. I don't draw blueprints. I'm just somebody who wanted to build an exposure unit, and I did it. So first of all, before I begin, I'm just going to tell you some of the basic things that I used. Okay, for the most part, I built my exposure unit using 2-inch by 2-inch by like 8 foot, I believe they were, pieces of wood. So they were small pieces of wood that I created a frame using. So for example, I'm going to try to draw this in a way that you can see it. These would be my 2-inch by 2-inch pieces of wood here. So here's the beginning of it. Okay, so I built a frame like this using those pieces. All right, so here's my frame, the top of my frame anyway. Horrible drawing, I know. And in order to connect these pieces here, I use these brackets that you can buy at Home Depot. They're made out of metal. There's a couple ways that you can do it. There's different types of brackets, but for the most part, these brackets they sit kind of like this. Oops, broke the lead. They sit like this, and they allow you to screw these pieces of wood in together. So basically you end up getting a very strong, sturdy frame right there. So that's how I, for the most part, connected these pieces. And some of the brackets that you can purchase also will connect a piece going down as well. So I have these other pieces that come down this way, just like this, really simple, nothing too out of the ordinary, nothing too complicated, that came down like this. Okay, now as far as measuring these pieces go, I use the idea of that I found off another video that I believe, don't quote me on this, go look it up yourself, that the distance from your light bulb, which would be down here, my light source, to my screen, which would be sitting on top of this top frame, needs to be, I believe it's 1.5 times the distance from each corner of your screen. The longest side of your frame from one side to the other, or I guess from the inside of the frame. So anyway, that would be the distance from here to your screen or whatever. But go look that up on another video. It's out there to see. I'm not really going to get into a whole lot of that during this process, but I did want to mention that as far as how I measured out these pieces here. The size up here was just big enough for me to put in 2 screens, and also I had to keep in mind of the distance of the light and blah 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 blah, all those things. I don't remember exactly what it was from here to here. I think in my video I do tell you how far it is from here to here and how large my frame is here. But anyway, so I'm using my 2x2 by whatever inch pieces of wood here, all screwed together using these brackets. Okay, and then I also did the same thing at the bottom, so I connected them all around here. So there, I ended up with a square box frame. Let me check my camera to make sure you can see this. Okay. So I created my box frame there. That is the beginning of my exposure unit. Super simple. I've got my frame. Okay, so we know what we're doing there. All right. So from there on, I needed to create some sort of more stable, a little bit more stable piece of, because this still is a little bit wobbly. If I did put walls on this right now, using like some board sheets or whatever on the outsides, it would help stabilize it. And that was something that I did keep in mind for the future. But what I did here is to help stabilize and also to create kind of like a shield along the outsides, which, you know, it may or may not have been a good idea. But again, this is how I built my old one, kind of, and I wanted to use the same idea. Is I used more of that wood to create braces here and here, like this. Okay? And those were just screwed in using screws. I believe it was here, 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 and here. You don't quote me on this, like I said, because I don't remember everything. But I did that on both sides, and I tried to do it as uniform as possible on each side of this frame, because what I'd use these for, because I screwed them on the inside of the frame, I use them to lay down sheets on the inside of the box. Here, like, it's hard to explain without you seeing it. I laid a sheet here and here, creating kind of like a V from the light source. And that's just to, I think that I did that just to kind of enclose the area a little bit so that there's not so much light spreading out, but you don't want a lot of light reflecting either. So the sheets that I put on the inside, the whole inside I spray painted black using high heat black spray paint. You can buy it at Home Depot. They use it for barbecues and stuff like that, so it can withstand the heat of the light bulb. So anyway, so I got this frame built, and I'm doing this as I'm looking at photos as well. One of the trickiest things about this unit is the vacuum top, and that's where I get most of my questions from. So what I did here is I have this frame, okay, and because I use these brackets here, there are screws and it is metal, and I don't necessarily want to lay glass completely on top of this these pieces. So what I did, like I did on my old unit as well, is I took more of that same wood and I put it on the outside here. Okay, it's hard, again, it's hard probably to see this, but that created almost like a lip coming out. Okay, I don't know if you can really see what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to darken these lines up so you can see it. So here, let me erase the inside of here. Maybe that'll make it a little more visually understanding. I don't know. Make it easier to understand what I'm doing. So I created, using, again, the same wood, the 2x2, a lip on the outside here. And this was screwed into these pieces here as well, all the way through. And this lip is sitting, I believe, about 1/8 of an inch higher than this piece. So this piece here, all the way around, the outsider lip, is sitting a little bit higher so that these screws don't touch my glass. So when I had my glass cut, it was cut to this outer lip size and placed on top. This way nothing is hitting my screw holes here or any of my brackets, and it's sturdy. Okay, so there's that. So so the next process that I needed to get into was, I think what I did next was I did lay my my light bulb, at least the mounting or where I'm going to put it, and I used I believe it was like a 2x4 from here to here, just laying across here to create like a mount, and I did screw my mounting piece straight into this 2x4. The light bulb itself is a 1000-watt metal halide, and it looks kind of like this. It's really big. It was cheaper, and it works pretty well. Although I would have, if I could have, I would have probably bought a smaller one because you want the light source as small as possible. But this works. So let's say this is the bulb right here. All right. There is at Home Depot, you can buy what they use for mounting, for example, for mounting, what are they called? Pipes, pipe mounts. They're metal pipe mounts that you can purchase that that look like kind of like this, and then they have a piece that comes down here and it screws in to something. So for example, if you had a pipe, you could be running it up a wall and you would use it to mount a pipe. Well, I use that to mount my light bulb, and I mounted that on the wood so it sits up above, you know, so this isn't touching like that. So it clamps around here, screws in really tight here. I might have had like a little piece of wood here to kind of raise it up a little bit higher, and you know, voila, I've got a mount for my metal halide bulb. So that's sitting here on my exposure unit, just like that. And as far as wiring goes, I had switches installed here and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the vacuum top. Okay, so I have the bottom of my, you know, I guess the bottom of the top, where the top comes down like this. So this would be the top of the exposure unit right here. When I built my vacuum top, the way that I did it the first time is I, again, did the same thing and created a frame. That was horrible, but let's just say that's the frame, just like I did before using the metal brackets and whatever. So I created a frame. So there's a frame, and I did that twice. So I had 2 of these frames, and what I did is I laid my material that I got. So like, say here's my material. I laid it on top, so it kind of went off the, you know, all over it. And then I took my second frame and I put that on top of this frame, and then I screwed it all together and then cut the extra material off. Okay, so then I have my top. And then using, what are they called? What's the word for them? Hinges, door hinges. I attached the frame with the top here and here, and then, you know, voila, I've got this frame that looks kind of like this when it's up. So like, here's my frame. Make sure that's in the camera view. Yeah. So got my frame here that's attached to those hinges, and so my material would be here, and now it's attached so it can, you know, open and shut. So it, you know, it can close like that or open up like that. Now in order to connect a vacuum, which actually I mounted my vacuum in here and wired that up as well to the switches, I drilled a small hole in my frame that goes through. Okay, and I attached it using, I bought this maybe 5-7 years ago. I don't even remember what it was, but it was a piece I got at Home Depot. I just had to look around, and it's like a piece that gets, I think it's like a 1/2 inch that plugs into the 1/2 inch of the hole, and I just kind of pounded it in there, and then it comes out like this, and you can attach, you know, a piping to it or whatever else you want. And I just attached my vacuum right here. It just popped in, and I pushed it in enough so it stayed, and you know, and my vacuum just goes down like this and attaches through the back end of the exposure unit and in there. So as I close this, because it's not necessarily glued in or anything, it twists a little bit so it doesn't, you know, get all tangled up or anything. So it twists down and twists open, and it sucks. It sucks very well. That's kind of a weird statement. It sucks well, but it does. It works very well. And I did that on my first exposure unit as well. Now on the exposure unit that I created the second time, I did create the same frame for the bottom, and instead of using 2 frames because that gets really thick, you know, what I did is so let me just redraw a frame here again. So this was the frame that I built, let's say for the top, the first frame that I built using the 2x2 inch wood. What I did is I went to my metal shop and I asked them if they could build me a frame like the same size out of thinner sheet type metal. And they told me, well, that's going to be this much, and it was too expensive. So what they did instead is they cut pieces like this. So I had and you'll see this on other exposure units. They cut pieces like that size here and here, and then this size here and here. So I had these 4 pieces like this. So what I did is I laid out my material like I did up here, like I showed you before. I laid my material out on top of this frame, and I took these pieces of sheet metal and I just put it on top, and then I just screwed them through. So I put holes in like blah 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 blah, you know, all the way around. and I put it on top and I screwed them in, and I had a real nice tight seal. And what's nice about this is it's not going to wear down as fast, and if I need to replace it, I can take it off and I can replace it and screw it back in. It's a little bit easier than having a whole frame built out of wood. So it works. So anyway, that's the basic concept of the exposure unit that I built. I did, mount some wheels down here. I did have to add a couple more, support things here and there, make it work for this, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of stuff that I did have to do. Up here where I told you that my light switches, my switches I installed, I had to put like another piece of wood that connected all the way across here so that it had a place to mount, and then another one here so that it had the bottom half to mount on. I had, let me try to think of other things that I had to do. I think for these pieces, or these wheels, I had to put like a 2x4 in the bottom here so that they had a better, a grab on my unit. And as far as the shutter goes, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole other drawing, a whole other system. I took these V's that we had here and here, and I put a 2x2 inch piece of wood here on this side, and the same thing on the other side. This is getting really confusing to see. I hope that just me talking about it is making sense to you. So I had a 2x2 put in right here, screwed in here and here, and I had another one on the other side of the unit on those same, V's that I made. And then what I did is I went to Home Depot and I bought what you would use for like keyboard drawers, like like I don't know if you can see here, I've got the keyboard that opens and shuts like this on these bearings, these metal bearings. Make sure you buy good ones. Don't buy cheap, because it won't work if it's cheap. And I installed it as if it was a drawer going out this way. So my drawer could slide open. So let's just say this is my drawer, even though you can't really see it so well because I drew so much. My drawer slides open and my drawer slides shut. Open, shut. So I could open up the light and I could shut the light. And what I did is on the drawer itself is I had my unit, my whole exposure unit, once I had all the walls put in, I had it open right here, and then attached to this drawer is a piece of wood coming out like this, so that I can, by using my hand, or I guess my foot I could as well, I can slide it shut or I can slide it open, and that opens the light, shuts the light, opens the light, shuts the light. So almost like this, it's sticking out, and I go like this, and the drawer shuts, and I go like this, and the drawer opens. So that's a quick rundown of how I did all this. There's so many photos that I posted. There's videos for you to check out. There's a lot of other information that goes along with this, especially when it has to do with wiring and all that kind of stuff. It can be confusing. It takes work, and it takes understanding and a little bit of knowledge on how to put these things together. But I recommend starting simple. Don't just decide that you're going to go in and just try building this, because you might end up getting frustrated if you don't know what you're doing or don't understand how it works, or if you're not used to building things. Again, when I first started screen printing, I started building a very, very, very simple exposure unit using like work lights. Everyone does that. Halogen lights, using regular light bulbs, using fluorescent bulbs. Then I made an exposure unit using this metal halide bulb in a smaller setting, a little more simplified. And then I went ahead and decided, well, we need to be able to burn larger screens. We need a new unit, and I want to be able to burn, higher quality, blah, blah, blah. And it works. And I built this, and I'm pretty happy with it. So anyway, that's kind of the lowdown on how I did this. I hope that's helpful and useful to some people who are looking for more information on how I built this unit. I'm sorry that I'm not an expert at blueprints, and I don't have blueprints, and I honestly don't have a whole lot of time to draw out specific plans, but I hope that this and hearing it and seeing my drawings will help you a little bit. If you do have more questions, feel free to respond to the video, and if I have some time, I'll do this again and kind of go into a little bit more explanation on how I did certain things. I can't give you step-by-step directions on every little bracket, on every little thing that I did, because I don't really remember everything that I did, to be honest with you. So so that's it. Again, look at the photos. If you do look at the photos and you're saying, hey, what's that what's that sheet metal that's like this, that kind of curls up like this? Well, that's from Home Depot. It is just sheet. It's a sheet metal. It's just, you can buy them in sheets. And that's the black stuff that's running up and down here and here as well. That's all just sheet metal, and then I spray painted it black. One thing that I am kind of not 100% like positive on is my reflector that I built. I do have a reflector around my light source at the bottom of my exposure unit. I don't know if I like that idea. I don't want light bouncing everywhere. I am thinking about taking it out and just having it be black with the light bulb being the only source of light, because when you do end up doing something like this, you get light that bounces here and goes this way, and light that goes like this, and light that goes this way and this way, and so you're kind of creating kind of a chaotic light, light beams going everywhere, when really what you want is you want the very brightest part of your bulb as small as possible and as bright as possible going up, because that's going to create you the best shadow possible. And the idea is that when you do, burn a screen, you want your film to act as a creating a shadow on your screen, so you don't want light bouncing everywhere. So when I see exposure units that are built like white on the inside, or are all reflective and stuff on the inside, that's kind of defeating the purpose of building this unit with a very bright metal halide source. So again, this is a 1,000-watt bulb that I got. I did have to order it online. They do come in kits with a ballast, which is this big thing, like big box like this, and there's a little starter that looks like a little metal thing that you do have to wire together. This ballast gets very hot. I do have a fan installed right here on my unit so that the air goes in, and the back of my unit is open so that airflow goes through and then pushes out the back. So anyway, I think I'm done with this video. It's very long. Hopefully I can upload it to YouTube. I hope that helps. If you check us out at breakout.co, that's the place that I do that I have. It's my screen printing shop. And also check me out on screenprinters.biz. That's kind of like a little community that I created for screen printers. It's brand new, but come check it out. Hope that you guys are having a good 2012. I will see you later.